I didn't have a problem with singing and making records about the. I roll with gangsters,
right?
And
they all love women.
This is what I'm saying. I've never seen none of I'm talking about from Preem to Fat Cat to who you can name women. You can name any. Like, what are we talking about?
What's going on, y'all? I'm Mia Bell, back with another episode of BET Talks, and with me, I have the originator of Thug Lovin', okay? Hey. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. The timeless melodies, the timeless joints, and of course, the soundtrack to a lot of our lives, including mine, hip-hop icon, Ja Rule.
Hey, what's happening?
R-U-L-E.
Hey, she knew the lyric. You know, for years people thought I said, "Are you ready?" I'm like, that doesn't make
Today
sense.
Years old. Well, not really today years old, but I was also the part of the "Are you ready?"
I'm like, it doesn't make sense.
It does make sense though, because are you ready for the heat that you about to get?
I'm with it, but it still doesn't make sense. But go ahead.
Now we know the lyrics. Of course, you're here with us today. It is such a pleasure. And before we get into the music, you're doing so much more outside of that it just baffles me that not everybody is talking about it. So what we're gonna do is brag on you today.
Oh, thank you.
Okay? Because you're building primary schools in Ghana.
Yes.
Right? Yes. You're doing a lot of that. You just had a Mother's Day brunch for the mothers out there who've been hurt by the system, of course, and just a lot that you do within the community. When I've seen you in concert, it's always been community, and I just think it's so beautiful. And I want to talk about where you are in your life now that allows you to put so much into others, pour into the people.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm in a great space. I think as artists age in the industry, they come to a space where I've done my part, and it's like, for me, I want to pay it forward. Now, I want to see other new artists, feel that excitement of having their first song, on the radio, or having their first sit down with Mia on the BET couch, or whatever it is. Those moments are, times in your life you never forget. So as you get older as an artist, or elder statesman, as they like to say in the industry, that's what I feel I'm supposed to be doing. Paying it forward and using some of the blessings that I've been blessed with, some of the money that I've been able to, accumulate over the years and put it back into the community and just pay it forward. Of
course. Now, have you always felt that way, or did something happen to kind of make you turn into that direction? I just know with music in general, especially with the OGs, sometimes they're chasing that first time over and over and over again.
I've always been into, philanthropy. I started my Life Foundation about 20 years ago, close to 20 years ago, and with Erica Ford, and that stands for Love Ignites Freedom and Education.
Yes, we love Erica.
And so we did that for a lot of years, and our communities are so, they've been struck with a lot of the word I'm really looking for is humble beginning. Because I don't want to put it in a way where it feels bad to our community, because it's the hand we've been dealt. So I would say humble beginnings, because that's our lives. That's what we're accustomed to. But I love the fact that I'm in a position to feel like we shouldn't have to go through humble beginnings.
Right.
My kids growing up with money was almost like a social experiment for me, because I didn't grow up with anything. So I'm watching them grow, and I'm watching, the experiences that they're able to have just by being in a different area code.
Yeah. What does that do for you?
It upsets me in a lot of ways, because obviously, I live in a white neighborhood and great schools, it just seems like that's where the tax dollars go.
Right.
And it's sad, because we need that type of encouragement in our communities, which are the more marginalized communities. So it's just tough, because you see the problems, but you look for the solutions and they're not there. So it's tough.
Absolutely. Now, growing up in Queens especially, and, you know, just on a mission to do the things that you wanted to do and your way, how have you seen just so much change within yourself too? Because you've come through a lot.
Yeah. Well, you know, some people see it that way, you know.
And evolving is new for you too in that way.
It is, you know. I think we all need to be able to do that, be able to evolve, be able to grow, be allowed to do that.
Right.
You know, sometimes as artists, people don't want you to do that. You know, they see you as a certain way, they get used to you making a certain type of sound, of music, and they want you to stay there, you know, and do that for them over and over again, you know. But Jay has a dope line where he says, "You want the old Jay, buy my old albums." We have to grow as people. We have to elevate, you know. And so I try to do that. It's not an easy thing to do, you know. It's a new record I have on my album. It's called Change. And
are you giving us a different sound on Change too?
On the album, yeah, it's more adult sound. I feel. You know, because I'm not a young guy.
Right.
You know, how do I rap about the things that, you know, are going on in the youth society when I don't live in that box anymore?
Of course. Now, the album is titled "Can We Watch the Sunset Together?"
Sunrise. Can we watch the sunrise
together? See, I like sunrise better.
Yeah,
See, I'm making stuff up over
Can we
here.
watch the sunrise together?
Can we watch the sunrise together? To me, I called you the originator of Thug Love too, because
Okay.
you've always gave us, you know, your heart on record.
That's a good way to put it. Too.
Of course, you've always been vulnerable in that sense, and that's something I don't think we were seeing from men back then. So when you come up with "Can we watch the sunrise together?" where's your heart?
I think it's in the right place. You know, when you think about that, the title in itself, it sounds kind of romantic.
It does.
You know, it's a good messaging in that. And when I say "Can we watch the sunrise together?" I'm really posing the question to people is, can we change? Can you know, because every day that the sun rises, you have a chance to start that day fresh, to be a better person, to be a new self.
Yeah.
You know, so that's really what "Can We Watch the Sunrise Together" is about. It, you know, it's about that change. You know, can we go through this metamorphosis together? And I think, you know, when people listen to the album, they'll understand, you know, the travels that I've been through and where I'm at, you know, in this particular space and time.
Absolutely right. We're talking about evolving.
Yeah.
Now, you celebrated 23 years of love with
Yes.
your lady,
Yes.
who I always see whenever you do your shows, because the family comes out.
Yeah.
You always got your lady with you, one of your kids with you,
Sure.
and it's so beautiful to see. Now with "Can We Watch the Sunrise Together?" how can you speak to your relationship and how that has helped you grow as a man? Talk to the young men, because they need to know.
Yeah, it's important to have a strong woman by your side. I don't think a lot of guys understand that when I say that.
Why is that though? What is happening out here?
It keeps you from doing a lot of goofy shit. Excuse my language. But it does. When you got a good woman by your side, she's gonna let you know, like, that ain't cool, that ain't, and vice versa.
Right.
You know, you get to say to her, like, well, that ain't cool either. You know, and you keep each other honest in that way. My wife, she's my rock, man. She's my better half. You know, I know that people say that all the time, it's cliche shit, but I really mean that. You know, I've been with her since we actually met when we were in junior high school.
Wow.
And so we've known each other for a very, very long time. And
were all the Thug Love records about her? And when I say Thug Love, I'm talking about the whole catalog
so,
of all
you know,
of it.
Put It On Me, I actually made for her.
Really? And that's my favorite
Oh,
song.
thank you. Well, you know, women, they resonate with the record because I think they can feel that it's real, that it has that emotion on it. But yeah, I made that for her, and you know, I reference a lot of our relationship things in music. You know, we've been through a lot, so you definitely hear that in music. In the new album, you'll hear, you know, things, you know, not nothing crazy, because we really don't have a crazy relationship. We really are very respectful to each other and good to each other, which is why we're still together.
Yeah.
Obviously. Yeah.
Of course, and that's something that keeps it together. Respect, for sure.
Love, friendship. People always ask me, how do you, keep that? How do you be married for 23 years? And in hip hop, that's like 50 years. It's like dog years in hip hop. But
yeah, especially with the way that you guys work.
Yeah,
and travel.
It's kind of crazy scheduling, but we were able to do that because I realized, not right away in the relationship, but I wasn't always Ja Rule in our relationship.
Right.
And so I also had to learn how to deal with that, as she did. And what I learned is I was becoming this person, and I had this whole new life. And I'm on the road, and I'm moving around, I'm doing all these things, and she's at home a lot, with the kids a lot. So in essence, she's not experiencing this new world. She's not really involved in my world, in this new world of mine. And I had to understand that. I had to realize this is why we're having so many problems.
Right.
Because she's not a part of my world, at least this part of it.
That was the disconnect.
That was the disconnect. And as I started to bring her with me on the road, and she started to see what it's all about, understand that we actually do work.
Right. And a lot too. Yeah.
Because people think that this job is just so fun, just having fun. Probably, they think that about athletes too, but they don't get to see behind the scenes how much work goes on. When you think I'm making these records, how many hours do you think it takes me to make a song? How do how long am I in the studio making these records? After that, the videos and that. So, when she started to realize and actually see it, then she understood it, and then it was able to smooth out a little better.
Of course. You have 3 Father's Days coming up soon.
Yeah. My kids are all grown now, so that's the best part for me.
So they don't have their hand out every day like
every
they still
goddamn
do?
day. Yeah, it's just every day. But they need big money now.
Of course. That's one of the perks of having Ja Rule as a father.
I'm not mad at it. I learned from the OGs too. Me and Run was talking one day, and he was actually talking about giving his daughter allowance. Okay. And I'm like, still? He's like, oh, it never stops. Right. I said, oh shit. I just hung my head and said, okay, I guess it's a, but it's part of my social experiment. And when you take a step back and you look, it's how people do it. It's how they make sure that the kids are good. They make sure that they're set up in life properly. They make sure that they can be successful in life. They set them up for success. And so, I'm learning these things because, like I said, it was a social experiment to me. Where I went to high school and where my kids went to high school is night and day. Right. You can't cut school in Saddle River. You laughing because what I'm saying is real. It's just impossible. Yeah. And me, I was allowed to leave school every day. No calls home. Even if you got a call, it was vague. It was whatever. Nobody was looking for me. If one of my kids were not to go to school, there would be like a full-on, this child is missing. Right. He's just not at school today. So it's very different.
I'm sure that you're bringing in some things from the past and
I'm a really, really good parent. I think. Because I'm a new way parent. My way of parenting is teach them, give them tools, give them the guidance, but also give them the rope. Right. You have to let them be them. You have to give them the rope, in essence, to do wrong, to give them room to f up. It's okay. Yeah. I'm the crutch. I'm gonna be here. Not. I don't want you to get in any trouble, but you should want to go out and experience life and live your dreams and go after whatever it is you want to go after. And I encourage that. Right. And so my kids are, very much, the entrepreneurs, the artists,
of course,
the creatives, they're all of that.
Yeah.
And I, but they all went to school and they all went to college and they all graduated, and I made sure of that as well.
That's amazing.
And so, you can have your leeway to do what you want, but there's also boundaries and rules that you have to follow along that way.
Of course.
Yeah.
Now, in your creative process with making music in this day and age where things are changing so much. Now, when I was getting ready, me and Nakia, who's on hair and makeup, we're talking about all the classics that you have and how we don't hear that kind of music anymore. And I know you're not giving us the same sound on a new project. So where do you pull from creatively? And what is your process like now? Because I'm sure it's so much different.
It's not too much different.
No?
It's not. Because creatively, I've always came from a place of honesty.
Okay.
What's going on around me, what I'm seeing, what I'm experiencing, what, friends or people around me may be experiencing. Those things leak into my music too.
Right.
It's always the same.
Mm-hmm.
I never want to, make music that doesn't touch people emotionally.
Right.
I think that is the best connection when you listen to somebody's music. When it attaches, it connects to you emotionally. That's when you have those timeless moments in music. This was the record of, we played all the time when we were in high school.
Yeah.
Going to this or doing that, or, those records live with you forever because they had an emotional attachment.
Absolutely.
And for me, the best way to make those records it has to come from that place, So that's where all my music comes from. It comes from a real place.
Yes. So when it comes to collaborations too, how does that work for you? I know you're on Ghostface's album that just came out, which is great. You dropped a single, Mama, with Sada.
For all the mamas, with Sada James.
Mm-hmm. So when it comes to collaborating, because we know you're the king of that.
I love to collaborate. I do.
What do you look for, and what are we getting on the album that you can say?
The album is dope. First of all, I'm gonna make this announcement. It's the first time I'm saying this. So I got into the studio, and I had an epiphany. I realized I miss it here. Like, in all my homes, I have a studio so that I can go and get these thoughts out whenever I want to. But sometimes that studio collects dust, I'm not gonna lie.
Right.
My kids record now too, so it's, it gets its work. But for me, it may collect a little dust sometimes, but I go down and I make records and I get things off my chest I got diss records, I got all kind of shit down there. I go and make them, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
I'm not gonna put them out, you know what I'm saying? But
because now
it's like when KRS said he makes a diss record or diss records every year for new artists just in case.
Just to stay on top of it.
Yeah, just sometimes, you go in there, you vent, and it'll stay in my vault. But, there's all kind of music in that vault. And it's just therapeutic in that way. And so when I got back into the studio, I realized, I love it here. This is my therapy.
Right.
This is what I've been missing, doing, being a part of my life every day. And so once I got in and started recording a new album, I couldn't stop recording. And I did something that I've never done too with this album. Throughout my career, and in my era of MCs, it was always the usual suspects of producers, the Pharrells and Just Blazes and Timbalands and Swizz and all of these guys.
Right.
They all did beats for Jay and X and Luda and everybody, Nelly and everybody.
All the greats.
Except for me. I never worked with these guys. And
what was the reason at the time, would you say?
We just was very self-contained as Murder Inc. We,
did everything in-house.
We did everything in-house. We had a bunch of producers and, we had Gotti as the overseer producer, and we just chefed up and we just cooked up right there. I was the pen and I wrote every damn thing, and we just had the formula. It was there. We didn't really need to go outside of what we were doing. People came to us for the formula, and so it became that. We didn't have to go to anybody. People came to us, and I wrote records, and Gotti produced records for others. And so it became that, but I was curious at this project time. I'm like, what would I sound like over this person? What do I sound like over, because sonically, you know, they have different sounds. They use different drum patterns. This album has that.
Okay.
It has that element. You know, I went, you know, got with Cool and Dre,
Come on,
Hitmaker, and, you know, all of these dope producers, man. My dude, Arizona Slim, you know, these guys, they produce for everybody now in the industry and do a lot. You know, Swizz Tim, I'm still waiting on my on that work, but
on
you
that
know,
pack,
we're waiting on that pack, but we gonna get it in. But I got so much music. I got flooded with so much music from so many dope producers that I had to extend what I was doing. And so now, this is now a trilogy.
Ooh.
So Can You Watch the Sunrise Together is the first of the trilogy. And the next project will be the Pale Moonlight album. The Pale Moonlight project will be the next album.
That's how much music we have in the vault.
Yeah, and then there's the third project, which is coming, which, you know, I'm tentatively calling it The Sunsets in the West. Because I wanna, you know, work with some of my favorite West Coast producers and artists.
Oh, yes.
Because I really feel like, sometimes I feel like a West Coast artist.
Yeah?
Yeah, people don't understand the connection there, but I'll give you a quick rundown.
I say melodies first, but go ahead.
But no, I'm gonna give you just a quick rundown on why I say that. So, my first album, Holla Holla was my only hit on that album.
Yep.
And
25 years, by the way.
25 years.
Come on.
But that record wasn't getting any traction in New York on the East Coast. And so went out to the West Coast, and big shout out to Demizza, Power 106. He championed this record. And you know, once you get LA, you get Oakland, you get San Francisco.
Right.
It's kind of like the same, you know, kind of on the East Coast. You get New York, you get, you know, DC,
Everybody
Virginia,
else.
you know, Baltimore. It's the same kind of trickle down. And so once I got the LA market jumped on the record, it trickled down to those other markets. So before you know it, people thought I was from the West Coast.
Right. Wow.
It was weird. And so Leor had to call Hot 97. And I just spoke to Leor this morning, and big shout out to Lansky.
Wow.
He had to call Hot 97 and say, he's making a fool of all of you. How are you not playing an artist from your backyard?
Come on, Hot.
And that's what prompted Hot.
Wow.
To start playing my record, because I was breaking in the West. After that, I had a real love for the West Coast.
Okay.
And so my second album, I went and made my second album on the West Coast. I did the whole album out there. And so I really got connected to the West Coast in a different way. You know, being an East Coast artist, you know, going out there and just, you know, seeing palm trees for the first time on the streets, you know, and just this different vibe, different lifestyle, you know.
It sparked something new in you.
It sparked something new.
And I think that's where we got that sound, though.
That's where we got a whole different everything.
Yeah. From what it brought to you, I would say personally.
It did. This whole second album was very different from my first album. But that was, you know, a conscious decision too, you know, that I made because I was being compared to X and Pac and, you know, those things. So I grew my hair out. Like, you know, Pac and X never had braids and wild afros. And so, you know, I grew my hair out, and the whole sound, I just changed it sonically. And, you know, I made this incredible album. I thought it was incredible, out on the West Coast.
Incredible.
And I brought it back to Def Jam, and they didn't like it. Leon and them didn't like the album. And that broke my heart a little bit.
It wasn't familiar to them.
It didn't sound like Philanthropy Beach. You know, it sounded very different. But like I said, it was a conscious effort that I was making to do that. And it was because of comparisons, and also because I was in the middle of two juggernauts, you know, X and J. You know, we were really, you know, championing the whole thing that was going on, the new emergence of Def Jam, and, you know, and so, you know, X had his space in the culture, Jay had his space in the culture, and I was kind of somewhere in limbo a little bit, you know. but I found my way. I always had a great female audience, and so I really zoned in on making those dope records for the females, and that became my lane. So you had X, the grimiest of the grimy, you had Jay, the flashiest of the flashiest, and then you had Ja, who made those records for the females, and that's the nucleus of that was Unstoppable.
Right, and of course, since women are the main consumers of everything, we the ones who pay the money.
This is true.
For what we love, and we keep the things timeless. I could say that for sure. And was it? I don't want to say difficult, but was it challenging for you to get vulnerable in a space where there was no vulnerability in that way?
Not for me. For everybody else, though, it was.
Right. And their perception of you too.
Yeah, me, it's like I am who I am. I'm people don't know me.
Right.
They just don't. And,
right.
And they know what they think of me or what people have said about me. And so they think they know me, but they don't know me.
Right.
I'm very comfortable in my skin and who I am. And so I didn't have a problem with singing and making records about them. Listen, I roll with gangsters.
Right.
And
they all love women.
This is what I'm saying. I've never seen none of I'm talking about from Preem to Fat Cat to who you can name Jay Prince. You can name any. Come on, man. Like, what are we talking about?
Right.
And you can go deeper than that. When you get into mob gangster, culture.
Right.
They're all about family.
Yes, they love and respect women.
There's a respect thing. They have, it's honor among thieves. There's this certain
standards, criteria.
Yes, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. So I never had any issues with being that. I can sing to my lady and slap the shit out of you.
Right.
In the same breath.
Right.
In the same sentence.
Two things can be true.
Absolutely. So I never understood that. But, I stood on it and I made it cool for, real street. Be like, yeah, that's what's up. That is fly shit.
Right. And that's my down ass.
And we did that. I feel like the whole culture was created behind that. People felt comfortable to make those kind of records now.
Right.
After I did, I took the bullets for it. Trust me, when I made Put It On Me, that was a very uncomfortable studio session.
Right.
Like,
really?
Not for me, but for others. They were like, Ja, what are you doing?
What is this?
Like, what is this? Like, what are we doing here? And I'm like, yo, this shit is.
What did they expect you to do on that beat, though? I don't understand.
I could have did a gang of things on it. It's plenty I could have did on it, but that's what it called for.
Thing.
That's what it called for.
Right.
And to me, there's nothing more gangster. There's nothing more honorable. There's nothing more manly than, having a real woman, being, good to that woman, having family, raising your kids, doing right by your kids, making sure that they navigate through this tough world that we live in. That's
what's real.
That's what's real. And so, I had no issues with being that person or taking the bullets for being that person. I'll take them right now, every day, all day.
Yeah.
So what? What are we talking about?
Right. And what you gonna do about it?
Who
gonna do what?
Exactly.
Look at me stirring it up.
You ain't starting nothing. You ain't said nothing
right.
wrong.
Who gonna do what?
They ain't gonna do nothing. You know what I'm saying? So that's the point. But it should be celebrated. It should be congratulated. It shouldn't be something that we look down upon.
Right.
So.
And to see the way the culture has took it and ran with it and the way that it's growing, that's what
absolutely
a lot of us gravitate to. And there's so many artists who are dabbling in that space where, they're able to be soft, vulnerable, sing, rap, whatever it is that they want to do. And it's working.
Yo,
so thank you for that.
The funniest thing, right? When I went to prison, there was a young rapper in there, and he just didn't look the way he sounded.
A lot of them look like that now.
Yes.
Like, not the way they sound.
And so, everybody knew I was in the facility, and so he wanted to meet me because we had a connection. And this connection was deep. It's sad, but deep. And it just goes to show where we at as a community, and we just got to do better. So years ago, I had went to visit Mutulu Shakur in prison, and Mutulu ran the prison. So I went to go see him. They let me in the prison. I was walking the yard.
Just like that?
Yeah.
Regular. Wow.
Yeah, like a regular civilian was walking the yard with Mutulu Shakur. And, it's like, you're not supposed to do shit like that.
Right.
But they allowed me to do it. And I went in and I took some pictures with some of the inmates and stuff, So now it was getting interesting. Fast forward to, I don't know how many years later, my dumb ass is in prison now.
Wow.
For gun possession. And I'm in the feds, and I meet a young man in this prison. And he says, yo, Joe, I want to show you something. He said, I rhyme, I want to spit something for you. He said, but Joe, I want to show you something. I said, all right, come, show me whatever. Next day, we in the weight room. He comes, he brings this picture. It's me and his father.
Wow.
And I went to see Mutulu.
Wow.
It broke my heart because I'm like, this is the cycle.
Yeah.
I break this cycle. So now I'm here. Now I'm in jail.
Right.
I was going to see Mutulu on some enlighten the brothers in jail shit, and now I'm in jail with this man's son. It was a very awakening moment for me to see how it's almost set up.
Yeah.
But I don't want to get into that right now. I don't want to make no excuses. I don't want to do none of that.
It's true though.
It's just what I felt in that moment. And then he rapped for me. But he did this record. First record he did for me was a record. I think it was called like Dominican Girl or something like that.
Right.
And he sang the shit. And in that moment, I realized this is what I brought to the table.
Yeah, influence.
Because this not be comfortable singing this record to me like that.
Right.
In prison.
In prison. What a full circle moment.
It was. It really was. It really was. And to know that my music impacted like that.
Was that your last time in prison?
Absolutely.
Okay, good.
I ain't going
We
back.
learned from that one.
I ain't going back. Listen, I tell all my homies, don't do no crime around me.
Right.
I'm telling.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Don't do no shit around me. I'm telling you right now.
Right.
Don't do it.
Yeah.
Don't do it. Because I'm 48 years old. I'm not going to jail for you. If you do something around me and the police come and get me, you better tell before I do. That's what I'm letting you know. Because I'm not, nah.
You've
So I don't play
experienced
that.
it.
I don't play that.
You know
And
what
when
that
I
world
experienced
is.
it, I was by myself.
Yeah.
I was by myself.
Yeah. You have a family.
Nobody was with me. Nobody. And let me just say, when it comes to that sort of thing, like stand up niggas, fuck all that. But what I did in my situation, I had people that tried to take my charge and go to prison for me. Because in the hood, we feel like that's what you should do for the breadwinner, for the, because usually there's only one, there's
the ticket.
Yeah, exactly. Again, it was part of my social experiment, but and so I had people that was willing to do that for me. So one of the people that was willing to do it for me, if they were allowed to do it, but the police wasn't, it was they wanted me.
Of course.
But if they were even allowed to do it, they would have probably got like 5 to 10 years. Well, I was only gonna do 2.
Yeah.
And so I let this person know, like, don't even, like, we not, like, why would, I'm okay. Like, I can go do 2 years in prison. 24 months, that's it, I can go do that.
Right.
But they're gonna give you 5, 10 maybe, if they even allow you to do it. And so I wouldn't even want that for a person. You know what I'm saying?
That's
even
real.
if even if you're willing to do that, I don't want that for you.
Right.
And so I went and did my 2 years. And I learned a lot in that time, came home a better person, I like to believe.
To see how it affected a lot of the things, not even to say a lot of the things, but what you're doing now too, in reference to the tour, and what's happening with the UK, not being able to tour over there.
That's because of my
Right. And even just thinking about that and reflecting on those moments too, because everything happens not by coincidence, right? It's a part of our lives. And realizing that it's a time in the past that you've grown from, you learn from, and life goes on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But for all you young rappers out there, you see, it's not, if you get into the music business to do music, do music.
Right.
Do music. Because look, it was, you know, we left about maybe like $6 million at the box office.
And they love, the UK, you know how they love us. You know how they love hip hop.
It's up to money, kids.
Right. And that's what you don't want to do.
Stay out of trouble.
Absolutely.
Simple, you know.
Hip hop had a really great moment with Drake and Kendrick going back and forth with these records. Literally had us all up for the last week listening to these records.
Media won,
but I feel like hip hop also won too because they were very intentional about the joints they put out. I think personally.
Kendrick won.
Of course, we know that.
But I'm just saying, that's who won out of this.
Right.
I don't think Drake feels like he's won anything right now.
But musically, what would you say?
Musically, it was cool. It was okay.
Okay?
It was okay. I'm gonna tell you my true feelings. I would rather hear Rick Ross and Drake make records together.
Okay.
They make monster records together.
All right.
I'm just saying, it's fine. And I'm glad they were able to do that and keep it on wax and it's all.
I think that's the beauty in it.
But see, here's what people don't understand.
What?
It's hard to do that. It's hard to keep it that way.
Okay. Tell more about that.
You and one of your girlfriends get into an argument, y'all throwing jabs at each other. What's next?
Right, because it's not going to be sweet.
This is what I'm saying. So these brothers are far apart right now, and they're in studios saying these words to each other. But what happens when they see each other?
Right.
That thing is going to shake hands and say, yo, that was a good battle.
See,
I don't know if that happens like that.
Speak to the illusion of that too, because from my perspective as a listener, as a consumer, as someone who loves hip hop.
It's amazing. It's great.
Right. That's the beauty in it sonically. I'm loving what they're doing. The production.
It's amazing. It's great.
Right. It got a little messy. I'm not into the whole you did
very messy.
I'm not into
like,
that.
Are they trying to send each other to jail?
Right.
What are we doing?
Okay.
So
I understand.
But here's what I don't like about the battle.
What?
You can't get into a fight and then say, hey, there's no punching in the face though. We're gonna fight, but you can only hit in this area.
Right.
Like, what do we? That's not how fighting works. That's not how arguments work. That's not how. You have people that love each other for 20 years. Marriage and everything. Get into a verbal argument and try to take each other's head off.
Right.
Say things about their personal, the secrets and all kinds. So what do you think
it's gonna happen?
This is what I'm saying. So when I see the media, egg it on all week. You got 9 days to respond. You got this, you got that. Where you at? Kendrick, where you at? Drake. And you do all of this. And then when the gloves come off, you say, well, no, we don't want you to say that.
Right.
No, you're going a little too far now. You can't, it doesn't work that way, man.
It has to be one way.
It just doesn't work that way. So it's either leave it to the side and don't do it and let these kings be kings. Because, the real honest answer here is they all help catapult hip hop. So now what? Drake's not cool now?
Right.
It's not cool to like Drake now. The guy that gave us bops for the last, I don't know, 10 years. How long Drake been giving us bops?
Oh wow.
So it's not cool. Drake's not cool anymore now because he was in a rap beef. I'm just saying, make it make sense.
Right.
So I get it. It's fun for everybody outside of the beef. It's fun for Kendrick because he won the beef.
Right.
It's not fun for Drake right now. It's not fun for Drake right now. I seen something online where his teacher, she was talking about her school.
Right.
And the dynamic of the school. And she said, this school, it was a white teacher. She said, this school was a Drake school. She said, after this whole thing, she said, it is now a Kendrick school.
Wow.
She said, and the few kids that want to still be Drake fans and stick, they get destroyed and chastised by the other kids who were just Drake fans 2 weeks ago.
Right.
It's weird behavior.
Yeah.
But I get it. Somewhere down the line, we've been told that hip hop is a gladiator sport, and we must devour each other, and it can only be one. But I'm here to tell everybody that is not what hip hop is.
Yeah.
Hip hop is a big business now.
Yeah.
It is a genre of music. It's not, us beatboxing in the cafeterias and all, beating on high school tables and us having ciphers anymore. It's not that anymore.
Yeah.
It's evolved into big business. And so now that beefs, I'm sure, you think Nike wants to hear about Drake being a pedophile?
Right.
You think that helps them?
Oh, you're bringing the reality into this one, yeah.
This is reality.
True,
this is the reality.
Yeah.
And so, I get it. It's great. But for who?
Right. Ooh, come on. Evolution.
I'm just
Can we watch the sunrise together? Because that's where we at with it.
It happens about 5:42 in the morning if y'all are up.
Evolution. And you know what? That struck a chord for me too. Because I'm with the outside, loving the music, not really thinking about the reality of things. And now, the internet, it advances all of it. Propaganda, the media.
I've never seen, this is a new way of covering rap beef. I mean, it's like being covered like, you got guys breaking down what the lyrics, what they say. I don't even think the rappers themselves thought this shit through that deep. I'm like, these guys are coming up with stuff that's like, you really think they thought all the way through to that?
Look, the breakdowns have been getting so much shine these days.
Crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. But it's, like I said, it's fun. It's fun. It is fun. I had fun watching it and listening to the lyrics and but I'm also a person that's been a part of it, kind of.
Right.
And
you live the reality of it.
I live the reality of it, but I also live the reality of when people are just rejecting your deposit. I know what that feels like. And it feels like right now, it don't matter what Drake says. Drake's been winning for so long that they're like, yo, we just go sit down for a minute.
Right.
We doing Kendrick now. And that's just kind of the reality of where we're at with beef.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I would say, Joe, just keep dropping bops, Drake. One thing I know about people, and I've learned about this industry, is they're fickle.
Right.
They don't care.
The pages turn every single day.
People don't care. People ready to flip on Kendrick when he didn't respond fast enough.
Right.
But when he came with responses, they were like, all right, we're gonna flip right now.
Yeah.
It is what it is, man. But I enjoyed it. I think both artists, they did their thing with the verbal, going back and forth. The lyrics were good. Whatever. And that part of it, yeah. but that's not how it ever.
Right. That's
stays.
only a piece of it.
That's not how it ever. It doesn't. So where do we go from here?
Right.
Is what happens next now? I don't know.
What would you like to see from hip hop next? Generally.
No
more rap beefs.
No, I would love to see more unity in hip hop. I like when Drake and J. Cole and Kendrick all make records together and do, they sound great together. It's dope. And no, it does not have to be one at a time. No, this is music. It's not sports.
Right.
It's not. You don't have to have one champ.
It's music.
It's music. It's just numerous people that win.
Absolutely.
Only time we decide who's the true winner is when we go to award shows. And that's when we all put up against each other, who had the best album this year, who had the best music this year. And you let the fans or the committees or whoever chooses the winners, choose the winners. And it's fine, but, hip hop is always gonna be hip hop. There's always gonna be rap beefs. There's always gonna be people who take aim at each other. I just think it's beyond that right now. It's bigger than that. It's bigger than that.
Of course.
Yeah.
And from your legacy and the trilogy that we are about to receive with Can We Watch the Sunrise Together, what is something that you want the world to know and just to feel off of the energy that you're giving us through the music and just through everything that you do in general, because I know it's so intentional.
I just want to bring fun back right now. Let's have some fun.
Right.
Hip hop. Everything's so serious, so tense. You know,
loosen up.
Yeah, let's get back to, you know, having some fun, man. What happened to, you know, block parties and, you know, the date parties and rooftops? Just, come on, it's summertime, man. Y'all really want to be beefing through the whole summer, man? It's summertime, man. We trying to turn up, have some fun. You know, let's go. I don't. You know. So I'm hopefully I'm gonna drop some bops, man. We got some fun, turn up, make summertime. But
before the summer,
I can't do it alone.
Right.
You know, I'm making adult bops. I'm not making the bops for the young and the youth. So I'm making it for us. You know,
for the grown folks.
For the grown folks. We can have some fun too.
Absolutely. We're having a great time here at BT Talks. Ja Rule, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
You are a legend.
Thank you.
We can't wait for the new music. And please, put the beef down. Make some music for the ladies.
Why not?